Our first guest of the morning is Representative Ed Case, a Democrat who serves the state of Hawaii, also a member of the Appropriations Committee. Joining us from Capitol Hill, Representative, good morning.
Good morning and aloha.
One of the things that you do on that Appropriations Committee, on the subcommittee side of the Defense Subcommittee, with that in mind, how does that shade what you've heard over the last couple of days concerning the Signal app?
Clearly, it's of great concern. Let's just start with some really basic stuff. This was clearly classified information. You don't put war plans, detailed war plans up anywhere other than in a very protected environment before, during, or after an actual exercise. The timing was terrible because it was before, and the enemy could certainly take advantage of that. But you don't even do it afterwards. It's classified. It's supposed to be in a SCIF. It's not supposed to be in an open chat room, even a Signal chat room that does not protect that information from very, very accomplished adversaries who know how to get after that information. And that's why we compartmentalize that. That's why it's this way. So the basics of what happened were this was classified information and it was inappropriately handled, period.
And the response from the Trump administration and other Republicans who have looked at this matter and made comments over the last couple of days, how would you gauge that?
I think they're just trying to gloss it over. I think they know it was a colossal mistake. I think they know that it reflects on one of the fundamental criticisms of this administration's defense and intelligence appointments, which are a lack of knowledge of the subject matter, lack of credibility, the lack of competence. So I think they understand that this is more than just an isolated instance. It's an actual questioning of the credibility and the competence up to and including the president and his judgments on his appointments. And so their response, and I think it's the wrong response under the situation, is to kind of gloss it over and deny it and pretend that there's every reason why this is not a problem. And really, what they should really do, and I think they've started to do this a little bit, is to say, look, this was just an outright mistake and we need to review it and there needs to be accountability for it. That would be the best way to handle a situation like this.
Would you go as far as suggest firings of certain personnel?
I mean, I think that's a little premature for my taste. My instincts in this kind of a situation are to be very careful. I think obviously the information that I know of today is compelling for some consequence on the job side up to and including resignation, but we don't know yet what we don't know. This is an area where there certainly should be a full investigation, full oversight by Congress. This is Congress's job to oversee a president, a Defense Department, an intelligence community that has made a mistake or apparently to understand the extent of the problem. Why did this happen? How much more was going on Signal over the last couple of months? What other classified information is out there and is at risk, and who was responsible for that? I mean, the military culture is about accountability, and that's what it should be about. But what I would want to do is to get all of those facts in place and then make a very informed decision. And I think that's important for two reasons. First of all, I think it's the right way to handle accountability up to and including resignation and firing, which is a pretty extreme remedy. Number two, I think it gives everybody far more credibility in calling for it at the end of the day if you've got a really solid factual base that nobody can really deny. You can't get around it. You can't deny it. The facts are those. What is the accountability going to be?
Numbers on the screen if you want to call and ask our guest questions. 202-748-8000 for Democrats, 202-748-8000, one for Republicans. Independents, 202-748-8002. Text us too at 202-748-8003. Representative, this morning, several stories taking a look at the effort to pass some type of reconciliation bill by April the 7th. As an appropriator, what does that mean to you?
Well, first of all, I think appropriations are about values. At the end of the day, I mean, we can talk arcane budgets and deficits and debt, all of which are really critical. But at the end of the day, what you do with your taxes, what you do with your spending is about your basic value structure. And from my perspective, the value structure that is inherent in the reconciliation bills that are moving thus far in Congress don't reflect my values, nor I think my constituents for sure, nor most of the country, which I think wants to relatively have an equal distribution of both the obligations and benefits of democracy. And so if you have a reconciliation bill that is really only designed to sustain and extend tax cuts for those in our society who have benefited the most from society on the tax side at the expense of those who have benefited the least from our society over on the spending society, then I think that's a fundamentally flawed process to start with. And so if you want to take it from an appropriations perspective, certainly I would want, at the end of the day, for the appropriations to be a much fairer distribution of the spending capacity of the Appropriations Committee and of Congress throughout our society.
Politico has this to say about the process, saying that the way forward will involve the House and the Senate approving a budget resolution that defers to each chamber's respective committees on how much money the panels will need to trim from programs under their purviews. This adding that the Senate Budget Chair, Lindsey Graham, said their hope the chambers could vote on a new blueprint as soon as next week, reflecting the emerging strategy. How does that fit a strategy compared to regular processes, including the appropriations process?
Well, clearly reconciliation, when you want to talk about spending reconciliation bills, is about usurping the appropriations, the regular appropriations process. And so clearly as an appropriator, I don't believe that that's the right way to go, because I think the Appropriations Committee is the proper place to try to allocate the spending of our country across a number of different factors in a fair way. And the reason that we have the Appropriations Committee is to do that in an organized, central way where we're balancing a lot of interests. When you send it out to multiple committees with multiple jurisdictions, you lose control over that central process, and it ends up as a pretty chaotic mess. And I think that's where we're heading on this particular reconciliation. And that's before we get to the actual instructions that have been put out there to date. Many of them very, very concerning to me, especially the ones that would trim Medicaid for this country. And 1/4 of my constituents rely on Medicaid for their basic health care, and that's similar to the rest of the country. So I've got a problem with this entire process, on the politics of it, on the regular order side of it from an appropriations perspective, and then from a substance situation. I just don't think that this is a fair and values-based approach to our budgeting in this country.
As a Democrat, as an appropriator, how do you flex your muscle, so to speak, at this point and make your thoughts known on this process?
Well, I think the Appropriations Committee has always been rightly very jealous of its jurisdiction, because I think that this is how we should handle appropriations and federal spending in our country. But let's face a real reality here, and that is that in the big picture, in the really big picture of this presidency and this administration, the biggest piece that is lacking right now is an effective check and balance from Congress. An effective check and balance. Congress's job is to act as an oversight agency over the president, over the federal administration, and to act where necessary as a check and balance. And if Congress fails in that job, then things break loose, like what we're seeing right now with overreach, with massive court lawsuits where courts are saying that the administration cannot do what the administration wants to do. And so I say that because at the end of the day, although I understand that many of my Republican colleagues, who are in the majority on both the Appropriations Committee and throughout Congress, of course, are concerned about this process, are concerned about the usurpation, especially in the Appropriations Committee Republicans of our jurisdiction. Thus far, they have chosen not to say no to this president. And what I'm waiting for at the end of the day is for some of my Republican colleagues, if not all of them, in Congress to act as an effective check and balance on this administration. That doesn't mean that they don't have to try to advance the policy of the collective Republican Party, but it does mean that they have to fulfill their constitutional duty. And until they do that, we're going to continue along the lines that we have right now.
This is Representative Ed Cage joining us, Democrat from Hawaii. He serves on the Appropriations Committee.